Welcome to This Explainer. Imagine for a second a tiny group of islands in northwestern Europe somehow becoming the absolute center of the largest empire in human history. I mean, it sounds like fiction, right? But it's actually one of the most defining realities of our modern world. Today, we're going to explore the incredible scale, the rise, the complex realities, and the eventual transformation of the British Empire. Notice the staggering contrast right here. At its absolute peak, the British Empire controlled roughly 25%, a full quarter of the world's entire landmass and its population. We're talking India to Canada, Australia, down to Africa. A quarter of the globe was under the influence of the British Isles. When you actually compare the physical size of Britain to that massive slice of the world it controlled, it's honestly hard to even wrap your head around. So that naturally brings us to the big question, doesn't it? How did a relatively small nation build such a powerful empire and, why did it eventually fall apart? Keep that question right in the back of your mind today because we're going to unpack the exact historical facts that answer how all this went down. All right, let's dive into this. Here's our chronological roadmap for today. 1. Birth of the United Kingdom. 2. Rise of global power. 3. Life inside the empire. 4. The fall and transformation. And finally, 5. The modern United Kingdom.
Section 1. Birth of the United Kingdom.
Because before there could ever be a global empire, there actually had to be a unified nation. You can see here exactly how the state was built physically and politically over time. In 1707, the Acts of Union officially brought England and Scotland together to create Great Britain. Fast forward almost a century to 1801, and Ireland joins the Union. Then jump ahead to 1922. We see Irish independence, but with Northern Ireland remaining a part of the Union. And that effectively forms the United Kingdom as we recognize it today. So what actually gave them the edge in those early days? Well, it really boils down to 3 foundational elements. First up, their strategic geographical location. Being an island nation kept them safely separated from all the constant land wars tearing up continental Europe. Second, they built up a highly powerful navy to protect those shores. And third, they had a steadily growing economy. Put those 3 things together, and you've got the absolute perfect stage for expanding outward into the world. Section 2. Rise of global power. Now, during the 16th and 17th centuries, Britain started rapidly setting up colonies across North America, the Caribbean, Asia, and Africa. But the real game changer, the thing that gave them just an enormous, totally unmatched advantage, was the Industrial Revolution. Look at these technological leaps. Steam engines, modern factories, and incredibly advanced shipbuilding. These weren't just cool inventions, they were the literal engines of global dominance. With the fierce power of the Royal Navy securing shipping routes across the oceans, these technologies allowed Britain to completely dominate international trade. They were the undisputed maritime power of the era. And by the late 19th century, under the reign of Queen Victoria, the empire had grown so vast that it sparked a very famous saying, "The sun never sets on the British Empire." It's an incredible phrase, right? But the crazy part is it was literally true. Because the empire stretched across every single inhabited continent, daylight was quite literally always shining on at least one piece of British territory. Section 3. Life inside the empire. Grasping the sheer size of the empire is one thing, but actually living under imperial rule was incredibly complex and really a double-edged sword. On the one hand, looking at the major developments, the British Empire built extensive railways, deep-water ports, schools, and administrative legal systems across many of its territories. It dramatically expanded global trade and drove the massive spread of the English language. But we have to balance that against the very real costs. Imperial rule brought widespread exploitation, highly unequal economic policies, and severe restrictions on local self-government. Many regions faced intense resource extraction and political control that ultimately benefited Britain far, far more than the local populations. It's a deeply complex historical reality, and the lasting impacts vary wildly depending on which country you look at.
Section 4. The fall and transformation.
As we know, no empire lasts forever. Moving into the 20th century, we see this inevitable decline cascading in 3 major steps. Step 1 was the ultimate catalyst. The 2 world wars placed just an absolutely enormous financial and military strain on Britain. The country was frankly drained, and that financial ruin directly fueled Step 2. Post-World War II independence movements started gaining massive strength across Asia, Africa, and the Caribbean. Which brings us to the historic turning point in Step 3, India gaining its independence in 1947. This was a monumental shift, and it was rapidly followed by dozens of other nations cleaning their sovereignty over the next few decades. Decolonization was well and truly underway. But here's the thing. The end of the empire didn't mean Britain just completely vanished from the global stage. Instead, it transformed. The empire gradually evolved into the Commonwealth of Nations. Think of this as a voluntary association of independent countries that choose to cooperate on shared interests. So while the hard political control of the empire ended, Britain managed to keep significant global influence through ongoing diplomacy, finance, education, science, and deep cultural ties. Section 5. The Modern United Kingdom. So what does the UK actually represent in the world today as a modern constitutional monarchy? Well, it remains one of the world's leading economies. It stands as a major international hub for prestigious universities and cutting-edge scientific research. It's a massive financial services center and, quite honestly, an undeniable cultural powerhouse when it comes to literature, music, and international diplomacy. In fact, London is still recognized as one of the most vital financial and cultural centers anywhere on the globe. So the hard power of the empire is gone, but that soft power, it remains incredibly potent. I want to leave you with a final thought here. The story of the United Kingdom and the British Empire isn't just the story of one isolated nation. It is quite literally the story of how history can shape the entire world. From a small island kingdom to the largest empire in human history, the legacy of that journey continues to echo through our modern international relationships, our discussions around global identity, and the very paths of human development. It really forces us to ask, how will the complex ripples of this empire continue to shape our shared future? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep exploring and keep learning.